we are doing best films. So
I have 5 films. Some of them I'll be able to talk about more than others, I think.
I still have my 10, which I have loosely ordered.
My only real criteria for films for this list, it was the ones where I left the cinema and just went, that was great. So they're not necessarily great art.
Yeah, those are the ones that I decided to put at the top of my list, because I've got a very odd list. Like there's a few things that have been on other people's lists that have been quite high up, that have just been across the board. A lot of people have put these on lists, and then some of them I feel like are just me, that no one else seems to really care about these films at all. Like, well, I liked it. So it's kind of an odd list. I do have a few honourable mentions, which I can just rattle off before we start, which were Mother, which has been on a lot of lists, that I just like that it's a perfect like depiction of dreams, particularly my dreams and my stress dreams. And then my favourite part, because it just kind of disintegrates more and more as it goes on. It starts out being quite coherent, and then by the end it's just complete chaos and doesn't make like any sort of realist sense. It just devolves completely into abstract symbolism. But there's one bit when the main character's like doing up a house, and then there's suddenly this party and there's all these people here, and people keep sitting on the sink, and she's like, don't sit on the sink, it's not connected properly and you'll break it. And then they get off the sink, and then she turns around, they're on the sink again, and it just keeps happening. It's like, that's exactly what my stress dreams are. That you're trying to stop something from happening, and then suddenly it's happening again, and you don't know why. And then to like the whole,
and that doesn't even make sense as a sentence. Don't sit on the sink, it's not connected. That's
just me trying to explain what it was. It was like the foundations weren't right with the sink, that if you like put pressure on it, it would come away from the wall. And there's a bit where people were painting the walls like over the wallpaper. They're like, oh, we're trying to help, and they're just like painting the walls.
such a dream thing to happen that would never happen.
She's like, no, stop doing that. And then later on they paint the walls again. And that was my favourite part of the film. It gets much more sort of horror-like later on, which is generally more my sort of thing. But that was more stuff that you see in other films, I thought. Whereas that middle section was, apart from maybe Paprika, I haven't seen anything that deals with the way that dreams work. Not that it's like, I get like that's one interpretation, as you can see it as being a dream, but that's not how I go. But it's just so reflective of what my dreams are like, and I felt like somebody understood. It's probably what a lot of people's dreams are like, but it's like what all of my dreams are like. It's either I have stress dreams or I'm not dreaming. Like there's nothing else.
Yeah, I don't get the thing where people, like in movies and stuff, people have dreams and it's like a lovely dream where
I never have any nice dreams.
Where they're like going shopping with an unlimited budget, or they're on a desert island or something really nice. It's never like that.
No.
That's never what happens. It's always horrible.
I get a lot of dreams where I'm trying to go somewhere and I can't get there, usually in London, and I'm on like a train and it's the wrong train, and I'm like, oh, if I get off at this station then I can get this train, and I'm on that train and then it's going the other direction. So many trains.
That's just London. That's stressful anyway.
That was just my life for 3 years. I talked about that more than I intended to. My other honourable mentions are The Red Turtle, which was an animation, like a feature-length animated film. I think produced by Studio Ghibli, but I'm not sure how involved they were. But you so rarely see this sort of hand-drawn, realistic, detailed animation in a feature film that it's just, I felt like I had to talk about it just for that. There's not a lot of talking in it. It's just a guy gets marooned on an island, and then there's a turtle, and the turtle is red. The turtle kind of screws up all his escape attempts. No reason, just a malicious turtle. But then the turtle's also his friend. It's a confusing, like... abusive relationship.
Morally ambiguous.
Yeah. And it's just basically a guy living on an island trying to make it. There's some crabs that are very cute in true animated film fashion, but it's a very good film, and not a lot of people talk about it. I think it was on Mark Kermode's top 10 list, and that's the only place that I've seen it. And I feel like it's been maligned for being an animated film, but it's very good, and that's what I wanted to say about it. Then I have 2 more. Pecking Order, which I've not seen on any lists, and I feel like it's very much just a me thing, that it's just a documentary about people who keep chickens, and they're getting...
I see why you would relate to that.
This is just me. But I saw a trailer for I can't remember what I was in the cinema to see, but I saw a trailer for it and I'm like, it's like this film was made for me. I am definitely coming back next week and seeing this film in the cinema.
How many chickens do you currently have? You've lost count.
I think about 10.
Wow, that's loads more than last time.
I can't remember.
Your chicken collection is expanding.
Yeah, because they all live about the same amount of time, so we have a lot of chickens and then we have few chickens and they all die in like the same year. Or sometimes like a fox gets in and then they're all gone.
Oh god.
And then we gradually build up our chicken collection. Fox hasn't got any of the chickens for a while though. We've really tried to fox-proof the runs.
There was a dog that kept coming in and you had Suki.
Yeah, it was next door.
Suki the third, because it was always going for
I
the
had
Suki
3 chickens called Suki, the first 2 killed by the same dog. The third one lived a long, fulfilling life. After that, the neighbours moved and we got different people who did not have those dogs. Yeah, so sometimes a dog, usually a fox. But we've got 2 sets of chickens. We've got more normal chickens now, whereas this documentary was about fancy sorts of chickens, which are a lot of fun to look at.
I kind of want to watch this. This sounds like
it's a lot of fun. And they're getting ready for this chicken show in New Zealand.
Yeah, I like the dog equivalent of that. I like documentaries about dog shows.
It's basically like Crufts, but for chickens. And there's different, like all the breed standards and these different sorts of funny chickens. And there's also like some sort of chicken like guild or something, like this club. And the president's like died recently. He was the president of this club, and now there's a new person and no one likes the new person, and there's like a power vacuum.
This is basically Game of Thrones.
There are other people vying to be like the president of this chicken club.
Game of Thrones with chickens.
Yeah, but with
I'm
chickens.
sold. That sounds amazing.
And then there was
Can we watch that after
There
this?
was talk of chicken poisoning, but no chickens were poisoned, which I felt like I know.
Making of this film.
I saw it in the trailer that there was mentions of chicken poisoning. I'm going to be very upset if any chickens get poisoned by other chicken keepers. I feel like that is not in the spirit of keeping chickens, poisoning other people's chickens. But it was all fine. No chickens were poisoned, and it was just cool to see like the best examples of these breeds of chickens winning little medals and little sashes. It was so cute. There were a few ducks and pigeons because it was like a poultry show. So a few ducks and pigeons and geese. And like one guy had a swan.
Oh,
he was just in the background. I was like, wait, what? That guy's
Showing
just carrying a swan.
With your swan. How can you even keep a swan? They're vicious, horrible
He was just
creatures.
carrying it, like then its neck was like wrapped.
I've been bitten by a swan.
You
drew blood.
I've been bitten. I've been chased by many a swan. I think I've been bitten by a goose.
I wasn't doing it. It just started chasing me. And then as soon as it was
Evil
pecking
animals.
broke the skin on my leg. It was just pecking at me. It's horrible.
But it's mostly chickens, and it's a great. I can see why it's not been on people's list. It's only an honourable mention.
It sounds like it
would
have been on my list if I'd seen it.
It's so good, and I'm glad I saw it in the cinema. It was worth the admission price.
I was in the cinema. See, when you go and see these things, you need to tell me because I would have been. Sign me up for that.
These chicken documentaries. And then my last honourable mention was The Lure, which would have been I thought going into it would definitely be on my list, but then it never quite lived up to its premise. But it's a Polish musical about mermaids, and I just thought that sounds like the best thing I've ever heard. But then it was never quite it just didn't live up to what I wanted it to be. It was quite disjointed. I don't want to say the acting was off because maybe I'm just not familiar with the Polish language. And I think because with musicals, so like a lot of it was in song, and songs just don't translate well if you're reading subtitles. So I felt like if I was able to speak Polish, I'd probably appreciated it more. But there were a lot of good things in it. It was like an adaptation of the original Hans Christian Andersen story, and it was interesting to compare it to Disney's Little Mermaid. It's got a lot of the same plot points, but just very much an 18 film, very much an R-rated version of the Little Mermaid.
Horrible. Well, it's not horrible.
Yeah,
but it's grim.
Yeah,
well,
it's grim.
Fairy tale puns.
Oh. But it's got, but I like how they did the mermaid. They had like an eel's tail rather than like a nice pretty fish tail. It was like quite a disgusting long eel weird thing. But they have, I guess, like fake legs. So like a lot of the time they have legs, but then if they get wet, it'll turn into a tail. But then like one of them falls in love with a human man, but he won't be with her because she's a fish. So she's like, I want to get real legs, but instead of like casting a magical spell, they like cut off some humans' legs and they like swap.
God.
So there's like a human that wants to be a mermaid and a mermaid that wants to be human, and they just cut them in half and swap them over and then sew them back up. But then he's still like not really interested in her, and then he falls in love with someone
I imagine
else.
She wouldn't be looking that hot if she'd been cut in half.
There's just like this seam, like clearly a different person on the bottom half.
Can you imagine if there's some weird fish woman trying to go out with you and you're like,
they have like big fangs when they're gonna, because they eat people.
That sounds terrifying.
Maybe I'm just not up on my mermaid lore, but like I thought that was more of a siren thing. But maybe that's maybe there's a lot of crossover between mermaids and sirens. But they have like these big fangs and they eat people and they lure people into the sea
and drag them down.
Yeah.
Can you imagine some mermaid girl
with their songs
trying to go out with you, saying, "Oh no, thanks. I think we should just be friends," and then she comes back a couple of days later with sewn on legs.
Yeah.
Anyway,
those are all my honourable mentions.
I had one honourable mention, which was Spider-Man Homecoming, which I think we're showing our dynamic.
Oh yeah, I remember you telling me about that, and I was like, oh, there's some bits in that sounded fun.
It was fun. We didn't have to see Uncle Ben die again, thank God. So it wasn't an origin story.
Aww.
And I liked that Spider-Man was a teenager, and he looked like a teenager, and he acted like a teenager, and it wasn't this huge big plot where he was going to save the world. Because it's just it's him being a teenager and trying to deal with his powers.
Yeah.
And so there are stakes, but it's not like all the other Avengers movies where the world's going to end or some planet's going to be destroyed.
It's like it doesn't always have to be that dramatic.
It's fairly small scale, and he really learns lessons, and it made me like Iron Man more because I'm not a big fan of Tony Stark, but he has to kind of parent him a bit.
One of the few superhero movies I have seen is Iron Man, and he just seems like such a wanker. He's such a wanker,
and I think that's kind of why I liked him in this movie, is that he's having to be a bit of a dad and be like, hey, come on now.
He's to be responsible.
Teach him to be responsible, yeah. But yeah, I liked that he was vulnerable, and I think there's a bit where he cries and stuff, because I mean, it sounds stupid, being a superhero must be tough anyway, and he's only like 16. I really felt for him. He was like a child. It was watching a child, and there's a bit where I can't remember what's happened. I think he's under a pile of rubble. I'm trying to remember why this happened, and he's trying to get it off him and being like, it made me uncomfortable because he was so young. It was like, well, yeah, it's tough. Like, he's a literal child, and he's like, people are trying to kill him. That's not okay. But it was really cute, and it was very funny. Didn't take itself too seriously, I think. And I liked that they kind of messed around with stuff a bit. Aunt May was really young. Peter was like, he was a nerd, but in the kind of way that it made sense for him to be. Like, he went to a nerdy school.
Yeah.
So as opposed to like the old movies with like Tobey Maguire, where he's this kind of dork and these jocks are like bullying him and calling him names and stuff. It wasn't really like that. It's like, it's this school where everyone's kind of on the same page, but this one guy is just a dick, and he's not like uncool and bullied, but he's just a bit awkward, like as he would be hanging out with his friends. It was cool. It was funny.
It's nice. I mean, I didn't see it, but it's nice to hear about teenagers being depicted in a more interesting way than you usually get in things, and just being depicted more realistically.
Yeah,
particularly in superhero things, because a lot of because you get origin stories of superhero things, and a lot of them are when they're teenagers, but they just sort of act like little adults.
Yeah, he didn't, which I really liked. He tries to save the day, and he messes up, and he makes things worse.
As you probably would if you were 16 and trying to save the day.
And he gets told off for it.
I wish that had been the film that I'd gone to see with you, and not King Kong.
That was so
I feel
bad.
Like I made a bad decision.
But we loved it though. Like, it was the worst thing ever.
I didn't like it.
Yeah, I know. It was a terrible film. But
I
was worth the price.
Enjoy myself in it anyway. I would have enjoyed myself at the Spider-Man film, even though I'm not interested in Spider-Man. I was fooled.
Okay, next
because
Marvel
I thought, I like King Kong, the original, made like 100 years ago.
That was so bad.
But it was so bad, and not like Jurassic World was bad, but in an enjoyable way. And I enjoyed Jurassic World and tearing it down.
Yeah, we went to see that together. That was funny.
Yeah, I think there's
the man saving his little cocktails as he runs away from the. That was my moment. I remember. There's
a new Jurassic World film coming out this year.
We'll go see that together.
I'll go and see that, and then there will be a third one at some point. So we should go and see those. But yeah, King Kong let me down. I thought it would at least be enjoyable. But
I kind of did find it quite enjoyable. Not as much as Jurassic World. But anyway, we're getting sidetracked. I'm sure we can do like
our... It's very much not on either of our lists.
No, at some point we can do like a episode about what's not great about that.
Yes.
and rip into things we hate, and we can talk
Yeah.
about that.
You just do that. Like every so often, just have a bunch of things that we've seen that we haven't liked.
A giant bitch session.
Yeah, I might talk about The Handmaid's Tale and upset a lot of people.
But anyway, Homecoming was good. Spider-Man
Yes.
Homecoming, that was one of my...
Did you have another honourable mention?
I don't think I did, no.
I thought you had two.
Oh, I've put Dunkirk here, but...
Oh yeah, that's been on a lot of people's lists. I didn't see it. It's not my sort of thing.
That's the thing, it's not my sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I saw it and I was like, that is really good, but I don't feel qualified to talk about it at all.
Yeah.
I saw it, it was good.
Yeah, I saw a couple of things that... Like, I get that this is really good, but it's not my sort of thing.
I liked the way they told the story in that it was in... I think, was it 3 different time zones? I think 3 different plot lines, and they all eventually connect with each other. So that was interesting. It was very intense, and I'm sure you've heard about the tick 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 soundtrack that it had that just kept you.
Yeah, I heard probably like the main thing, like, other than like it's like they did have an interesting way of presenting a story. The soundtrack seemed to be very controversial. Some people loved it, and other people were like, "This is the worst soundtrack I've ever heard."
It was just very. I felt I was stressed watching it.
Which I feel like is what probably the intention of it. So,
yeah, I think that's what it was supposed to achieve. So yes.
I know some people thought it was just a bit contrived. I don't know. Yeah, because there were some films that I watched that have been on so many people's lists, and I feel bad that they're not on my list. Like Call Me by Your Name.
That's on my list.
We can still talk about it then. So I'll save what I was gonna say for that, because it's very good.
We can segue straight to that now.
But, yeah, we could do that.
I
can make it an honourable mention because it was very good. But I was just kind of like, yeah, it is what it is.
Well, I'd read the book and I loved the book.
Oh, okay, I haven't read the book. I love the soundtrack.
That's what the soundtrack, just the whole aesthetic of it. You'll see from my
the soundtrack.
I'm incredibly shallow, so loads of these movies I'm like, it just looked gorgeous, and that's why I like it.
Call Me by Your Name has been like a lot of people's number one.
I genuinely, it might be my number one. I haven't really numbered them again, but it was just the lights came up at the end of the movie and I was just in floods of tears. It was just like I just found it so moving. I can't even explain why or how. I think it's a feeling, a really specific feeling that you can't quite describe, that it invokes so well. And it was really good, and it was just so beautiful. It made me want to go to Italy and ride around.
Yeah, it made me want to. I want to live in this world.
Fall in love with Armie Hammer.
I found the main character, the boy who played piano,
Elio,
just so obnoxious, and I hated him. And it's like, it kind of pays off.
But he's a teenager.
It makes sense. Yeah. I do like teenagers acting like teenagers. I felt like the adults weren't responding to him in the way that I wanted them to just knock some sense into him, and they were just acting like he was so intelligent and amazing. And it's like, he's still just a teen. Like, yeah, he's very good at the piano. He's very clever. Isn't that so annoying? So yeah, I just really hate. And then I couldn't get past that. But I had a gut reaction to this character of like, I hate you. I hate everything you are. And I get why he was like that, and like it was like that was just how the character was written, and there are people who like that. It's because there are people who like that, and I know them, was why I hated him so much.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm being very unfair to this film.
I didn't necessarily like him, but I got it. I got why they liked each other, and I was very invested in the love story. But
I didn't really care about the love story. That's often my problem with love stories, is that I'm just not invested. And it's very much a me problem and not a problem with the film at all.
I just thought the last scene just destroyed me.
Yeah.
And it was so totally different.
Yeah, it was like the thing that I was not liking the film, just in general, up until the end. It's like, oh, okay, I do like this now.
Yeah, because suddenly...
I thought it was a good film throughout the whole thing, I just wasn't liking it until
suddenly it's snowing, which was so jarring given the gorgeous sunny paradise. Yeah. And then just gazing into the fire and crying for like, it must have been like at least a minute, probably more like 2. It was just like...
extended scene.
Oh God, don't look at me, I'm a mess.
Yeah. So that was the thing where I was like, that's a very good film, but I wouldn't have watched it had it not been for everyone's recommendations. And it's like, it's just not the sort of thing. Like, because you said that you have like a shallow response to film, that it's just stuff that looks like... I think I have a shallow response.
Well, that wasn't the only reason I liked it, but
yeah,
huge
but
plus
that
for me.
I'm kind of only interested in horror films. Like, my whole list is horror films and documentaries. And it's like, if it's not that, I just kind of think, well, like, it's a good film, but it's not really giving me anything to think about afterwards, other than that was really good.
Oh, I'd say it definitely.
I'm sure it did for other people. But it's like in my
I really
niche.
loved it.
It's why I could never be a film reviewer.
I know it's nominated for Best Picture. I hope it'll win. I don't think it will.
But that's what we thought about Moonlight last year.
Yeah, well, maybe they'd have thought, oh, we've already done one.
Well, apparently
which is bad.
One of the things that
I feel
possibly
like that's how
happened
shit
with
the
Moonlight
Academy is.
is that a lot, because like La La Land was, you know, pipped to win, but then a lot of people hated La La Land, and the way they vote with the Oscars is like you put things in an order, and so because there was like a backlash against La La Land, so many people put it as their last choice that might have been what elevated Moonlight, in that if Moonlight was like a lot of people's
Everyone
second
was just
choice,
like, yeah, that was fine.
yeah, so it's like La La Land was probably a lot of people's first choice and a lot of people's last choice, and so that evened out as a lower score for Moonlight, which probably generally received a higher spot on everyone's list.
More consistent.
And that's the theory about how Moonlight won, which was a bit disappointing because I thought maybe finally the Oscars actually care about good filmmaking, but no, it was probably just a technicality.
Oh, that's disappointing.
I know. So it's possible that
I really like it.
the same thing wouldn't happen this year, but
like it to win.
yeah, Moonlight was very good.
Shape of Water
I thought about putting Moonlight on the list, but I was like, it's one of the confusing things is films that come out this year, like last year in this country, and films that came out last year in America. And the Moonlight, for a lot of people, was a 2016 film, but in the UK actually came out in 2017. But I just thought so many people have talked about Moonlight.
Yeah.
It seemed like it was so long ago that I was like, oh, I'm just going to let Moonlight lie, even though it was technically, for me, a 2017 film. Another honourable mention, very good. But it was a long time ago now.
No, I loved Call Me By Your Name. I'd love it to win. I think people are thinking The Shape of Water will win.
I haven't seen The Shape of Water.
No, I mean, I thought you would have done.
No, it's one that I meant to see, and I don't know what happened. I just kind of missed it when it came out. I was like, has it come out already? Oh, it's already come out. Yeah, I haven't seen that. There's a lot of films I haven't seen, as the best of lists proved.
But yeah, Call Me By Your Name, it looked gorgeous.
Yeah.
I wanted to live in it, and it sounded gorgeous.
Looked and sounded amazing.
And I just found it very emotionally affecting.
Yeah.
So. And it was a
very
good
good
adaptation of the book. That kind of stuff
Yeah,
pisses me
I
off when they
read the
get
book.
that wrong. And I liked the book, and it was a good job all round.
Good job, you. Yeah, so there's like I've got a lot of films on my list that I'm aware are not as good as Call Me By Your Name, but that's why I'm making it a favourites list and not a best of list. Because there were some films that like, I just love these films so much. Like, particularly my top two are very odd choices. And I'm gonna like do like a little disclaimer now and be like, I know this is a weird list to have as a best of list. It's why it's a favourite list. And I am relinquishing any like responsibility for my list by calling it a favourites list. So if you haven't, so we've already talked about Call Me By Your Name, which was on your list, but if you haven't numbered,
I haven't numbered.
should I like run through like my bottom five?
Yeah,
I don't have a lot to say about a lot of these. I have a lot to say like I think about the top three.
Yeah, I have
and
three
less
more
so
to
about
talk
any
about.
of the others. So I'll just go through my lower down ones, which I don't have too much to say about. My number 10 is The Fits, which I think on IMDb is counted as like 2015, and I think it came out in America in 2016, but then technically came out in the UK early, like January or February last year. So it's very confusing about when this film actually came out, but I saw it last year, and there's like I've seen some classifications where it's counted as 2017, and I have seen it on some 2017 lists, so it's not just me who thinks this is a 2017 film. So I'm going to put it on there, which was about like a group of like a dance class, I guess, and it's like a group of girls in a dance class, and it's like a mass hysteria fainting sort of phenomenon.
Oh, I find those stories interesting.
And one of the films where I was just sort of watching it and being like, oh yeah, this is a good film up until the ending, and then the ending gets much more into like an abstract sequence and was really good, and there was a great sort of parallel between dancing and kind of a spiritual awakening kind of experience that really comes out in the final scene. And the way they did, there's one part where the main character has been afraid of experiencing one of these sort of fainting seizure things through the whole film, and then it happens to her at the end. And the way they film it is like you just see her feet walking, and then she's just sort of starts floating and walking on air. And it was a really good way of transitioning into that then kind of seizure, abstract, dreamy sort of sequence with dancing. And that's why it made it onto my list, is just that end sequence I really liked. Number 9 is The Florida Project, which has been at the top of a lot of people's lists. Which again, I was watching thinking, oh yeah, this is a good film, until the ending scene like nearly made me cry. And I was like, this film's so good! Which is about a group of children who live in, I think it's a motel, but it's like, maybe it was set up as a motel and now it's kind of like social housing. I'm not sure how, does America have social housing? I don't know how America works.
No.
But in this country it would be considered social housing, I think. So they live in a motel that's very close to Disneyland. And it was I like the juxtaposition. And you don't see Disneyland until the very end of the film. I just like the juxtaposition of the American dream that's kind of embodied in the Disneyland's version of like American history of Main Street. And then like the reality of it and kids trying to do kid things and not really understanding what's going on. And Willem Dafoe plays the like motel manager, I guess, sort of like the handyman, runs things, takes people's rent, gets the electricity working, fights off paedophiles, just an all-round good guy. Oh, yeah. And he was my favourite character. Like, apart from the kids, he was my favourite adult character. Really made the film. It was really good. And the ending was very sad. Then number 8 is Get Out, which a lot of people have put in number 1, which I was surprised by. I thought it was a very good film, and I enjoyed it, and I'm very happy to see a horror film receiving this kind of recognition. But I was surprised that it was so many people's number 1s. But then on some lists, it hasn't come up at all. So it's personal preference.
Like Marmite.
Yeah. But it was very good. I don't really have much to say about it other than that it was good. I liked that it focused more on, in terms of racism, focused more on like the fetishization of black bodies, which isn't something that I'd seen in so much in other things that deal with racism. And I just like that it's a horror film that's getting so much praise. And I hope it does well during awards season. I wish it all the best, even though it's quite low down on my list. But it was very good. My number 7 is, I'm not sure how you say it, I think it's Kedi. It's a Turkish word for cat. Which similar...
Oh, I've heard good things about this.
Yeah, similar to Pecking Order about chickens. This is kind of like the equivalent but with cats. That's just about stray cats that live in Istanbul and like follows these cats around and the people who look after them. And it's just so many beautiful shots of cats in the sunset. And it's just really... Just like a really nice documentary about cats. I listened to a podcast recently that was 2 people who don't like cats and someone who really likes cats trying to convince the people who don't like cats. And it was just like a discussion about like the general... It's kind of you're a cat person or you're not a cat person is the general consensus about people's response to cats. And I don't see how anyone could watch this documentary and not like cats at the end of it. Like, cats are such beautiful creatures.
See, I like them, but I'm allergic, so...
Yeah. You just watch films about
I've had to have dogs all the time, and then I think a lifetime of having dogs has made me less and less open to cats as I've gone on. Move more towards dogs. And I see why it doesn't have to be a binary. Like, you can like cats and dogs. I feel like I like cats and dogs. I like to be needed and I like to be obeyed,
which
is why I like dogs.
Which is what you get from a dog. I think I'm more drawn to the independence of cats because I'm less a responsible person. If I couldn't take care of a dog, cats can take care of dogs.
Yeah, you have a cat, you're just fending for... Yeah. Both just fending for yourself in the same house, rather than being a carer.
But like with this documentary, there were a lot of cats that acted in ways that like isn't the stereotype of cats, so who were much more affectionate towards humans and hung around humans more. And like little kittens and people like finding just these boxes of kittens and then taking care of them. Oh. It's like so many kittens, they were so cute. And I was like, how are any of these cats surviving? But you see these tiny kittens and they're just stray kittens fending for themselves. It's like, you're just too tiny. Oh. You need to be looked after. So many cats. But I'm really interested in ideas of domesticity with animals in general, which was basically what this documentary was about. And having domestic cats and then stray cats. And there was a really nice shot near the end of a cat inside the house looking out of a window and then a cat outside of, like a stray cat outside of the window. That boundary between the inside and the outside.
Sounds very poetic.
It was very, very, very poetic visual ending to the documentary that I like. And then there were nice shots of cats in the sunset. It was just very good and I recommend it to anyone who likes or does not like cats.
That sounds good.
Because it's just a great documentary. And then my number 6 is Thelma, which was a Norwegian... I don't know how to define it by genre. I thought it was going to be a drama because I didn't know anything about it going in. Because I just read a thing that was like, this is a film that's good to watch without knowing anything about it. And I stopped reading and I just watched the film. Like, that's enough for me.
Slam the laptop shut.
Yeah, that's enough. I'm just going to go and watch the film. So I went into it thinking it was just like a drama. and it turned out to be like a paranormal kind of horror, not really horror, but just like a paranormal sort of gay love story, which was exactly the sort of thing I like. So I ended up liking it a lot more than I thought I was going to, because it's like paranormal lesbians. That's like
ticks all the boxes.
If I know, it's like if Netflix was going to recommend me a subgenre, I feel like that should be it. That's everything that I want. But it gets progressively more weird. So it's like it wasn't even until halfway through that I realised there was anything paranormal going on, and I was very surprised. I was like, oh, that makes a lot of the other stuff make sense. But it was, probably a film that's best not to know much about going into. I always like to go into films like that, though. I try not to watch trailers. But then, like, if I'm in the cinema and they're showing trailers, like, oh, I've seen the trailer for that now. Ruined it. Trailers and their spoilers. But yeah, very odd. I liked it. I felt like there was this thing where with dead birds, and I felt like dead birds is a bit of a cliche. Could have done without the dead birds. Everything else is fine.
Get some new symbolism, please.
Everything else is good. Something about this one and the one that's my number 4 on the list that I have is like a really good opening sequence that I'm gonna describe the opening sequence, because I feel like the opening sequence isn't a spoiler, but does set it up as being probably not just a normal drama film that I thought it was going to be. Like, I should have twigged something was up from this opening sequence, but I kind of forgot about it after I watched it. But it's just like a little girl and her father who are like going into the woods in the snow in Norway. It's all very pretty, and like the father's aiming his gun at this deer, so they're like going out hunting. And it's quite a long drawn out sequence, and she's looking at the fish under the ice, and it's all very pretty and photogenic. And then as the father's going to shoot the deer, he just turns the gun to the back of her head, and it just lingers like that for a while, and then he just drops the gun and the deer runs away. So it's
my God.
Why does he want to kill his child? And then it becomes clear later on why he would want to do that. But it's very good. So then, so you have 4
I have
left?
4, maybe 5, but I'm flip-flopping on one of them now. Say 4.
Flip-flopping. Okay, I'll do my number 5 and then we can alternate again. My number 5 is I Don't Feel at Home in This World Anymore, which is a Netflix original film and caused quite the controversy at the Sundance Film Festival for winning. I think it won Best Film. It won like a major award at the Sundance Film Festival, and then everyone caused a ruckus in the world of cinema because it was never released in the cinema and it was just released on Netflix, and they were like, that shouldn't be allowed, you should have to release it in the cinema. So now there's a new rule in film festivals that it has to have been released in cinemas to be able to win.
I guess I think I like the idea of that, because I don't like the idea of...
Because originally I was like, I think they need to modernise and Netflix should be fine, but I can see their point.
Netflix is a big company that's being like...
Yeah, Netflix is just
give us your money.
It's...
And only us.
It's like, I did really like this film, but I also felt like it was a calculated decision by Netflix to try and be considered like a serious film producer.
What was it about?
To win awards. Getting into the actual film and not just the politics surrounding it. Although that was what I found very interesting about this film. It's a woman who loses her laptop and finds out that it's been stolen and decides to go and get it back with the help of her neighbour, who's played by Elijah Wood.
Oh, what's he been doing? I've missed him.
He's Frodo. In this. And then, so they go to this, they find, because like, the laptop's got like a tracking thing on it, so they find out where the laptop is and they just go to be badass and get it back. And they get the laptop back, but then they end up involved in this much deeper, like, crime network of who it was. Because, like, the person who had the laptop was actually someone who bought it off the person who stole the laptop, so it wasn't really them. And then they get involved in this sort of crime ring, and they're like, we need to take it down, and they go in really unprepared, and, like, everything goes wrong. But works out well in the end, mostly. So, yeah, I guess, like, a comedy, like a dark comedy, I don't know how you define it. Yeah, it's on Netflix. So,
is it a kind of a hijinks ensue film?
Yeah, I call it a hijinks ensue sort of film.
Comedy with
Elijah Wood. In a much more serious context than like The Good Place, where it's another hijinks ensue comedy with guns and such.
I'm definitely up for that.
Yeah, but yeah, it was very good. But yeah, like not a lot to say about it other than just it's good. Everyone should watch it. And again, not been on. I think I saw it. I've only seen it on one list. And it was their number 1 pick. But apart from that, I haven't seen it on any list. And I don't know if it's just that it was It was like, I think it came out in like January or February, so it was a long time ago. Maybe people have forgotten about it. Maybe it's just that it's not really doing anything special. It was just a good crime hijinks comedy film with Elijah Wood in it. And you're like, oh, where have you been since Lord of the Rings?
Oh, bless him.
But he's been in quite a few things. He was the voice of Wirt in Over the Garden Wall. That's what I know from. And then he's been in Dirk Gently, the American adaptation of that. And that's the lowdown on what Elijah Wood's been doing in our Elijah Wood segment of the podcast.
Yeah. We should have that, yeah.
Yeah, what's Elijah Wood doing?
Oh, him and Daniel Radcliffe.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like they started out in like a major franchise.
And they kind of look similar and they get mistaken for each other a lot.
And they're kind of like weird looking white men of a similar age. Actually, no, Daniel Radcliffe's probably quite a bit younger. I don't know. You can't tell how old Elijah Wood is. He's got a weird
maybe he's a vampire.
Old man baby face. What's going on with that? Who knows how old he is?
I'm definitely game for
He could be 57. Who knows?
The Elijah Wood and Daniel Radcliffe segment.
Yeah. Just see what they're like. Anything that comes out with them in, just talk about it, see what they're doing. But they both started in like mainstream, very popular franchises and are now doing
Daniel
like
Radcliffe did this
small indie things.
Did this romantic comedy I really liked. I think it was called What If? And it was the classic like, can men and women just be friends? But I liked it because it was saying like, oh, of course they can.
Yeah.
As opposed to the stupid Harry Met Sally thing where it's like,
God damn it, Harry Met Sally.
This was like, oh no, of course they can. Yeah. But of course they still end up together at the end of the movie.
Straight people say the most ridiculous things.
Yeah. But it was just a really good film and it kind of pokes fun at the rom-com tropes and there's a bit where he does the flying to go and see her in the other country and confess his love and then he kind of realises, oh wait, that's a really shitty thing to do. And then he doesn't do it. But then she finds out he was going to do it and she punches him in the face because she's like, what a dickhead. And he's like, yeah, that is a dickhead thing to do. Anyway, we're not talking about that movie because it wasn't this year, but that's what Daniel Radcliffe's up to.
Yeah. And he did
even that was a couple of years ago, so
which was really good. And he was in Horns, which was really weird that I didn't see. But
no,
it
I didn't
weird.
see that.
It looked kind of cool, but weird, and no one remembers it. Anyway, that's the end of our weekly segment. What are Elijah Wood and Daniel Radcliffe up to?
I like the idea of having that as a thing. I think we should.
We should do that. That's now going to become a regular thing. Just stalk their Twitters. Okay, so we're now up to my number 4. So if you want to just pick one.
Okay. So let me think. What would be a good one to do? Okay. Lego Batman.
Interesting.
So my criteria, as I said, was just films where I left the cinema and was like, that was just amazing.
Yeah.
I'm happy. That was incredible. And that was one of them. Like, I didn't really know what to expect. I took my little sister. I have a little sister who's 8 years old. I took her to see it. I was dying laughing. It was just the best thing. And then I found out it was really well received. And I think that's one of the things I liked so much about it.
I thought it wasn't that well received.
Maybe I'm looking in the wrong places. Because what I heard it was...
I think it was like... I guess, I don't know if you say well received considering, but compared to the original, like the first film, which is possibly one of my all-time favourite films. I love the original Lego movie.
Did you see Lego Batman?
I saw about the first 15 minutes and I stopped watching it because I hated it. So, very different opinions of this film.
Oh, no, I loved it.
But I think it's partly that I'm not a Batman fan.
Well, that's it. I'm not a Batman fan.
Oh,
so
okay.
I know of Batman from pop culture osmosis. So I was just like, oh, cool. And I got enough that I got references. And I was like, oh, that's funny. But then I've heard from people who really liked Batman. They were like, this is the best...
Yeah, the best Batman
interpretation of Batman that we've ever had. And then my little sister, who's 8, doesn't know anything about Batman. And she was like crying, laughing the whole way through and loved it. So that's what I thought was really good, was that...
Maybe I should give it a second chance.
Whatever level you were at.
I think I was just disappointed early on. Because I thought that... And I'm always a bit iffy about sequels or anything that comes after an original product. So I was a bit apprehensive about it, but then I think I just saw a clip of it and I thought that clip was really funny. I was like, oh, that was really funny, this is probably going to be good, which is why I started watching it. But then maybe my expectations were too high and I was like, no, this has let me down too soon.
I don't know, I think
maybe I'll try again.
If I would say try again, because I think if
Did the Batman come out last year?
It came out in like January last year.
Yeah. When did the Ninja one come out? Has that come out yet?
I don't know. I want to see it.
Oh, there's too many movies.
The Ninja Lego movie.
No, that didn't need to happen. I haven't seen anything about that.
Looking at a lot of my movies that I've picked, I think a big theme for me this year was things that are stupid, admitting that they're stupid. Like, Batman is stupid. He's a man who dresses like a bat. That's not cool.
Yeah.
And it's weird, and he, like, sits in his room in the dark and listens to angry music and broods by himself. And I like they have Alfred telling him, you can't do that. And I like that they really delved into his character and like why is he like that and why is he pushing people away. I loved when he goes to see the other members of the Justice League and they're having a party without him. It's like that's Batman. Like he's just this weird creepy loner dude.
An outcast even among the outcasts.
It was just hilarious. I loved it. And I loved the fact that it was all about all these relationships that he has, and there was a love story in it with what's her name, Barbara Gordon, Commissioner Gordon's daughter, which one was hilarious and two, she was great because she was just this strong female character. And I loved the bit where he ties up the controls. They're in the big climax at the end. They're in his little plane or whatever, and he puts a rope around the controls and he pops out and he's like, nobody touch it, the rope is in charge. And she just pulls the rope off and she's like, fuck that. And she takes control, and it's like, yeah, like, screw that. Sometimes men are going to put ropes on things and tell you not to touch it, and sometimes you need to just pull it off. She was really good. It was just really funny. That's all I can say. I was just genuinely in tears.
Maybe I judged it too soon. I might try again.
It's just really good. And I liked the bit where Alfred goes through all the different movies. I don't know if you saw that clip where he's like, oh, you're being very broody and weird, and Batman's like, oh no, I'm not. And he's like, yes, we're doing the same thing that you did, and then he lists off all the different years where there's been a Batman movie, and they had a freeze frame from each one for each movie. So that was, I guess, must have ticked loads of boxes for people who like
people who with
into their Batman. But then even I found it funny, and don't really know much about it, but yeah, I like that it was about all these different relationships and friendships and like father-son relationships. And
you do like your friendships.
Yeah, it was just so pure. And at the end they're just
try again.
Yeah,
I just loved the first film.
They had Alfred, Batman, Barbara and Robin all just being bros together. I mean, Eddie Izzard as Lord Voldemort, that was a nice little section. It was just really hilarious, and it wasn't taking itself too seriously, because you shouldn't take Batman seriously because he's a grown man who dresses up like a bat and fights crime. So that was good. And that's what I've got to say about that.
Yeah. One of my pet peeves about it, I guess, would just be the animation. In that there was a lot of effort put into the first film to like put like little fingerprints on things and little scratches on the Lego blocks that wasn't in this one. And that I liked in the first film, all the water was made out of Lego.
Oh yes.
But in Lego Batman, it's just water. What's going on with that?
Oh, that hadn't occurred to me.
This is in some parallel universe where they've got water now. That was one of my favourite little jokes in the first film was when Emmett's having a shower and it's just like bits of Lego.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that.
That's more of me being an animation nerd and getting upset about little animation things.
I think definitely give it another try.
Yeah. And also, like, a lot of people really like Batman in the first film, and I did not like Batman in the first film. So again, things about me.
That's the thing that he gets.
But I feel like I'll watch that and The Crown. Things to watch that I thought I wouldn't like that maybe I would like. So my number 4 is Raw, which is, I would describe it as the French cannibal film.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
That's about a vegetarian veterinary student who's going off to vet school, and then I think, considering it's I guess a horror film, it's one of those horror films that's like, maybe it's a horror film, maybe it's a film with some horror elements in it. But the most horrific part for me was the hazing rituals that she went through as being like a new university student, which I think is one of the things that I hate most about our contemporary society is hazing rituals, and they should just end all of them.
Luckily I never did any, but hearing about
I was never a part of like any sports things, so, which is usually where they happen. But I think like particularly with like medical school and veterinary school, they do it more there than with other subjects. And it was just awful. But one of the things they made her do was eat some sort of heart, like eat like some sort of flesh products. I'm not sure what animal it was. And she was a vegetarian, so like she's never eaten meat at all. Like she's grown up as a vegetarian. But then having eaten whatever this was, I forgot what it was that she ate, she then suddenly finds she has a craving for human flesh.
Oh God.
And it's this usual sort of coming of age kind of thing, particularly from like a feminine perspective, and I really like the relationship between her and her sister. Yeah, that's about it. But another thing with the opening sequence is another of my favourite opening sequences from anything that I've seen, just because it's like, wasn't expecting that. Similar with the father aiming the gun at the back of his daughter's head in Thelma. that it's just like a long shot of a road, like an empty road for ages, and then there's a car driving down it. You're just sitting there watching this car driving, and then somebody just jumps out from behind a tree, and the car crashes, and then the person gets up, and that's like the end of the opening scene, and then you just cut to this girl who's going off to college. Like, wait, what was that bit with the car about? And then it comes back later. And that's all I have to say on Raw. I recommend it for people who were maybe put off, because it's not that gross in general. It's kind of gross. It's well filmed. And it's just a very interesting film, and I might do a video on cannibalism in general at some point that will heavily feature this film. It was Mark Kermode's #1 film of this year. And again, not a film I've seen on many lists, to the extent that at first I thought maybe it came out in 2016 and I just saw it late. But no, it did come out this year. It's not been on many people's lists, but it was Mark Kermode's #1 film.
I don't think I'll be watching that one, but I'll definitely watch a video if you do a video.
Yeah. I'll just talk about it.
I've got 3 left, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I also have 3 left.
Okay, Baby Driver.
Oh yeah, another film I haven't seen. That's one that I want to watch at some point.
I really liked it. It was very fun. The whole concept of it was just incredibly clever with the music, and the soundtrack was incredible. And then I believe all the cast had earpieces fitted so that they could hear the music, and so that they moved in time. And because of that, I felt like it just carried you along so well.
I do really like stuff that's choreographed in music.
It's choreographed so well. It was just incredible. Like the opening sequence with the bank robbery, I think it's like 6 minutes long. It's just so good. It was really funny as well. Like there's a bit where they're about to go and do the heist, and he's like, wait, okay, go. And then they've forgotten something, and he's like, wait, no. And he has to get them back and get them to stop, and then play his music and then get them to go. Again, I'm really shallow. It was beautiful. I loved, it looked really good. Yeah. It sounded really good.
Much like Call Me By Your Name.
It was funny.
A very different film, but same likeable things.
It was really funny. Unfortunately, Kevin Spacey was in it.
I know.
Awkward
like that's
now.
gonna make, like, if I watched it when it came out, I wouldn't have had to worry about that because nobody knew yet. It's like now, it's like the same reason I can't watch House of Cards now. Like, god damn it.
Yeah, I watched a couple of episodes of House of Cards, and I was like, oh, I'm going to get into this. And now
I wanted to catch up on now that I have Netflix, and I hadn't yet.
It's got Robin Wright though, she's great.
Yeah, I do really like Robin Wright.
But no, Baby Driver, really good. I love Edgar Wright. He's genius.
Yeah. I don't think there's been any Edgar Wright film that I haven't liked. Unless I'm not sure how many that I maybe haven't seen. I think I've seen most of them.
It was also just the story was genuinely just really sweet. It's this really sweet love story, and somehow it was a white straight romance. And I managed to genuinely like it because it was just really cute. Like it was just sweet, and that was the whole point of it. Yeah. I'm trying to remember the actress's name, but she was Cinderella.
In the new live action one.
Yeah.
I don't know who
that actress.
I didn't
She's up and she seems to be doing well at the moment. I like her a lot. She was good. I really liked her hair. I liked all the things that she wore. I'm just incredibly vain and shallow. I liked Baby Driver a lot, but no, it was really good. And Baby, main character.
I have a film like that that's on my number 2, so
you're
in good company.
He's got he lives with this old man, and it's really cute. Who's deaf, and he looks after him, and it was just adorable. I loved it. And they had a brief throwback as well. There's a bit where Baby's flicking through the TV channels, and you briefly see the music video that with Noel Fielding in it. Kind of what inspired
for you.
Yeah, what inspired Baby Driver. Like that concept where it's I'm trying to remember the name of the song now, and I can't, which is really annoying me. But it was I can't remember what band it was either, but it was this music video which was Noel Fielding as the getaway driver and the people doing the heist get out of the car, and then it's just him in the car for the whole length of the song, just jamming. And it's really funny. Yeah, we'll watch it after. But yeah, just really good concept, executed very well, funny. Yeah. It was sweet.
It's one of those films that like I didn't get to see it in the cinema when it came out, and then I was like, it's probably not something that I'm desperate to see. I'm only ever desperate to see films or documentaries, but like something that I want to watch at some point. And a lot of people just assume I've seen it and then start conversations about it, and I'm like, I haven't seen this film. Still haven't seen this film. Yeah,
it was good.
Yeah, there were a few films that I feel like might be on my list had I seen them. Like there was Columbus. A lot of people have talked about that I haven't been able to see. That just looked like some just very nice long shots of architecture and scenery, which is always something that I like. I like some that are coming out, like Lady Bird. A lot of people have talked about, but like that's
I'd like to see that
coming out now in this country. And I, Tonya, I'm really excited to see that comes out in February. So UK release dates screwing up my list. Yeah, quite a few things that I didn't get to see. Or quite a few things that I just watched over Christmas that I managed to get on like the BFI player and things. Like I could just watch this now and put it on my list. Where am I? Number 3. I have The Ornithologist, which again is like a 2016 film for some people, but came out in 2017 here. Again, a film where I started reading a review and it said, it's best to go into this not knowing anything about it, and I just threw my laptop across the room. Like, yeah, I need to see the film first. So it just went into, I don't know why I always go into things just thinking it's going to be a drama, and then it just ends up being something completely batshit crazy. It's like, oh, I didn't see this turn of events coming. And knowing nothing about it, I went through thinking it was going to be multiple different genres. That it starts out just being like an ornithologist, like a bird watcher, and then he's on like a little kayak, and then there's some rapids, and then he gets like knocked out of his boat, and then these 2 Chinese women find him. There's a lot of different languages spoken in this film. There's Latin at one point. Things get very weird later on. These 2 women find him, and they're a bit lost, so he's like trying to give them directions. And like it still seems like just a normal like kind of drama, maybe slice of life sort of story. And then he wakes up and they've tied him up. And I'm like, oh, is this a horror film? I didn't expect it to take this turn of events. And I thought maybe like the rest of the film was going to be him trying to escape, or like when he does escape, I thought, oh, then the women are going to be chasing after him, and why have they tied him up? There was all this stuff, there's all this like religious imagery going on, which becomes very relevant later on. And if I know more about, you'd probably understand this more going into it for the first time than I did, because you know more about religious things. But it's basically about St. Anthony, who I didn't really know anything about, and then I looked it up later. I was like, oh, this film makes so much more sense now.
St. Anthony.
Just knowing these things. I don't know. That's all I know. St. Anthony. Some guy called St. Anthony. His birth name was Fernando, which is the name of the main character in the film. And just knowing that there's a St. Anthony and that his birth name was Fernando just makes the whole film make so much more sense. And I did not know that going in. But then after he escapes from the women, and I thought that was going to be a thing, that, you know, they're going to be chasing after him, he's going to be trying to escape them. But that's kind of the end, like the last you see of the women. And it becomes very much like a fairy tale, or as I realise now, it's just like a mashup of various biblical things and biblical stories and biblical themes. But he just meets a lot of weird characters. Then there's some taxidermy animals in the woods, and he just acts like that. No, like that's when it really started getting weird for me. And
taxidermy is not okay.
With the taxidermy animals in the forest was not acknowledged. Like, why is that a thing? And then he meets these women on horseback, and they're speaking in Latin, and then they call him Anthony. I forgot the name of the state. Then they call him Anthony. He's like, no, my name's Fernando. And they're like, okay, Anthony. Then they ride off. And I felt very uncomfortable at this moment, because like the whole film he's been trying to find his stuff and to, like, you know, find a way of getting home, and like he lost his map and he's lost his boat, and he's been asking all these people for help, and then the women offer him help and he's like, no, I'm good.
What?
It's like, but no, you're not. You're lost in the forest and you've lost your boat, and there were these weird people with a passport, and the Chinese women tied you up. And I was very upset at that moment, because it felt like a stress dream. I'm trying to get somewhere and I can't get to the place, and it's like, that's been your situation, and now these people have offered you help and you've denied it.
Okay, sounds like you need to lie down after watching that.
It was one of the most bizarre films that I've ever seen, particularly as I had no idea what sort of film it was going into it, and it started out being such a normal film about a guy who was bird watching, and it just descends into chaos.
Yeah, that's not where I saw that going.
But I liked the ending, because even before I looked at what it was about, I felt like everything was okay at the end. It was like finally getting the conclusion to the dreams that I never get when I'm dreaming. And then I looked at what it was about, and there's all this biblical imagery throughout the whole film, and it made a lot of sense then. Knowing that, I had no idea about any of that going into it, so I was very confused. But it was just such
an experience.
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, my next one, to bring down the tone.
Yeah.
I think we've established
I will definitely be bringing down the tone on my number 2.
That our dynamic is that I'm the shallow, low culture trash queen, which is fine, because this is again my criteria. If I left the cinema, like, I'm so happy, that was great, even if I know it's not Citizen Kane. So with that in mind, Thor Ragnarok,
Oh yeah. You said that this was on your list.
Yeah, it was just finally he has come to himself. He is Thor. Because these movies were a mess. We had the Kenneth Branagh one, and I still like the first one and the second one. And there's really good stuff in the first and second movies, but they're a mess, and they kind of don't know who Thor is and what the point of it is, and they don't have too much of a good emotional core. Like, I just felt the character of Thor was a bit lost, and here I feel like that's fixed. It's so ridiculous and silly is a word I would use, and colourful and bizarre, and that's what Thor is. I liked the kind of Shakespearean vibe that Kenneth Branagh gave it, and that's definitely has a place with Thor, but that's not all he is. He's a magical space Viking who can fly. It's pretty ridiculous. Don't try and make out it's really serious. Not ridiculous. And you need to just own it, and that's what this movie did. And Taika Waititi just owns my soul now. It was just, I'm a complete convert, and I loved it. I think I need to watch What We Did in the Shadows. Yes. Yeah. So I know you like that film. Yeah. I need to watch that because he directed that as well. He's also in it as, I can't remember the name of the character. He's this like alien made of rocks. So funny. Genuinely was about to wet myself in the cinema. Just the whole film was absolutely hilarious, and I really like what they did with Thor. He finally felt like he'd arrived and he kind of knew who he was, and he gets some development, and his arc in this is really discovering who he is, and he loses his hammer gets destroyed, and he's really kind of upset about it. And then Odin, spoilers, Odin dies quite early on, and then he kind of gets a weird flashback thing with Odin where Odin says to him, well, like, get over it, like, are you the god of hammers? No, you're the god of thunder. And he has to kind of be like, yeah, shit, I am. And he discovers these new powers where he can control thunder and his eyes glow blue, and it's really, really cool. And they had his relationship with Hulk as well, which was really nice, and it was just really cute. And because Hulk is Hulk in this for a large portion, he's not Bruce Banner, and that's just genuinely really funny. And they're both just kind of these big gruff guys kind of sat next to each other trying to relate, and Thor's really trying to reach out to Hulk, but Hulk's just a grumpy so-and-so and he's not having any of it, and he's like, oh, we're the same, you and I. And Hulk's like, yes, I am fire, you are water. And Thor's like, we're both fire. And he's like, I am big fire, you are smouldering fire. And Loki, I feel like they really got him again, which is like, he's not a big impressive villain, and I'm not saying that to be like, oh, he's not a villain, like, oh, Loki, I love him, just because he's too shit to be an impressive villain. He's just a mess. He's just fucking disaster.
He's like Megamind.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah. I'd love, if they did a Loki movie, I'd want it to be like Megamind. Yeah. But that's basically what's going on. You find out what he would do, because at the end of the second movie, he's pretending to be Odin, and he's taken over Asgard. And so at the beginning of this movie, Thor finally goes back to Asgard, and you think it's Odin, but it's actually Loki. And you realise what he was actually going to do if he took over the world, which was basically change nothing. All he's done is build a giant Loki statue. And then he has actors playing out the story of Loki's death, in inverted commas, because he faked his own death again at the end of the last movie. And that was really funny. And I liked how that worked on different levels as well, because I kind of thought that when I saw it, and then I saw an interview with Taika Waititi where he said that scene where they were reenacting the scene from the last movie was kind of them being like, we're closing the door on that was fine, but we're not going to do that, because it's this really melodramatic bit where Loki is dying in Thor's arms, and he's saying, I didn't do it for I did it for you, brother, and oh, brother, I love you, and I'll tell father what you did here. And it's really emotional, and was just genuinely hilarious to watch. It's like, this is the Asgardian soap opera I've always wanted. And he's just eating grapes, watching fan fiction of his life and a statue of himself, and that's all he's done. Like, he's not malicious, that's all he wanted to do, and he just kind of wants to prank people. Like, he's the god of mischief, he's not the god of evil. Yeah. He's just a bit of a shit, and I think this movie got it. There's a really funny scene.
The bit about the snake.
The bit about the snake, yes. You've not even seen it, and they're trying to decide if they should trust Loki. They've got Loki tied up in the corner, and they're like, oh, I don't know, should we trust him? And Thor's like, I don't know, you see, once when we were kids, I saw this snake, and I thought, oh, wow, a snake. I love snakes. So I picked it up, and then it wasn't a snake, it was him, and he turned back into Loki. And he went, boo, and I was like, ah! It was really scary. And he tried to stab me with a knife. And it was like, so many things about that. The fact that baby Thor just loved snakes. The fact that Loki is scarier than a snake. The fact that he was a snake and he could have bitten him, but he thought he'd wait till he picked him up and then just turn into himself and try and stab him. Why? Why not just stab him? It just... And then it cut to Loki's face with him kind of smiling like, oh yeah, that was funny. It was just, that's their relationship. It's not this like crazy Shakespearean rivalry. It's just this.
Because that always was the thing with the gods, that they were just always really
it's petty.
Yeah.
It's petty and stupid, and they're all just, he's just a mess. Like.
And that's canon.
Yeah.
That's what they were like.
Loki's just a disaster.
In all of the stories about like Roman or Greek gods, just all of them.
He's the awkward younger child who just wants attention. He's just a bit of a narcissist. And I like that also their relationships developed where one, Thor stops falling for Loki's tricks, because I thought they were doing it again. There's a scene where Loki tricks him and I was like, oh shit, not again. But then it turns out actually Thor's double tricked him, and he's like, no, I've got you. And I was like, oh, nice one, Thor. You're not as stupid as everybody thinks you are. Yeah, I feel like it finally got their relationship. They are brothers who just bicker a lot. And they're trying to actually move past their problems now instead of just having the same angsty conversation in several different movies. And I'm excited for them in the new Avengers film. That's going to be really good. And just, again, the whole thing was just so silly and ridiculous. Jeff Goldblum was hilarious. I love that Loki's first instinct when on a strange new planet is to find a sugar daddy. And that's basically canon. It's like, of course it is. That's Loki all over. It was just really good, and it was about identity. Thor finding his identity and his relationship with his brother.
And then he died and he became Anthony. Because that's what happened. That's what I've been taught about religious things.
And it had this really great, really retro vibe with the colour scheme that was really vibrant. And the kind of synth soundtrack.
I love
it was
synth
very
soundtracks.
Stranger Things. It was really cool.
I've noticed a lot of synth soundtracks this year.
I think it was really
I don't know
if
it's like part of the 80s kick that everyone's on now, or if I just haven't noticed before. There's a lot of synth, a lot of 80s synthy soundtracks and stuff that aren't set in the 80s. It's just there.
Yeah, it was really fun, and it didn't take itself too seriously.
Yeah,
would recommend.
Well, to lead on from you saying that you were like the lowbrow person, this was the difficulty that I have with my list. In the being like, I know stuff like Call Me By Your Name is like a really good film, and it's like so I don't know what the word would be, either ridiculous that I've put this film as number 2 and that I haven't put Call Me By Your Name on my list at all. Just seems so ridiculous. But I was like, no, this was genuinely one of my favourite films that I saw this year, and it was a film from Thailand called Bad Genius. Which, like, just the name Bad Genius, it feels like there's so many bad something, and they're always awful. But this was just I have no words. It's how much I loved it. And it's shot kind of like a heist film, but it's students. I don't know how like the education system works in Thailand, but I guess it's like they're in high school. And one of them is it's like a fancy high school, that it's like a sort of a stepping stone to going to university, like these top universities in America. And there's one person called Lynn who gets a scholarship to go to this high school because like she doesn't have a lot of money, but she's really intelligent, so she gets a scholarship to go to the school, and then finds out that there's actually all these other costs that aren't tuition costs that her father is still having to pay, but he hasn't told her about because he knew if she knew, then she wouldn't go to the school and she'd just go to the cheap nearby school or the free school. Again, don't know how Thailand works with its systems. So in order to pay these other fees, she starts helping other people cheat on exams, because there are a lot of like really rich but kind of dumb students who have just bought their way into this school and are failing. So it's a lot of them finding really ingenious ways to cheat and nearly being caught so many times. And I was like on the edge of my seat through the whole film. I was just really engaged in it, and it was just so delightful. And I love the ways they come up with cheating, because she plays the piano and she works out that, because they're like multiple choice questions, which again I don't really understand. It seems to be more similar to how Americans do like standardized testing, because we don't have that many.
Not really. No.
Certainly not at A level. You don't get any standardized tests. We have them at GCSE, so we have them for like 16. I think they were more like 18-year-olds rather than 16. But they have a lot of tests where it's like the answers are A, B, C, or D, and that was what all their tests were. So she just worked out like a little piano melody for each answer, and then just the finger motions on her desk, and all the others watch her, and so she's got a different one for A, B, C, or D, and she does the finger movements for the answer, and then everyone knows what the answer is. But then there's a bit like halfway through the film where there's this big test, and they don't realise until they get in that there's two different papers. So like half the room has paper A, half the room has paper B. So they can't, not everyone can cheat on the same paper. And so like they work out who's got, just via looking around and people mouthing things, what paper people have. So she does the first paper, which is the one she has, and then swaps with the person next to her who she's also helping cheat, who has the other paper, and then does both papers. I just love how intelligent this character is. She's just so amazing. It's like, oh, you're just so smart. And like swaps, and then so she does like two papers in the space of one. I just love that she was just so good at these tests that she did two in the time of one. And I just love how I won't go into all of the ways that they cheat. That sounds good.
That sounds like kind of like a relaxing movie, in that the stakes aren't that. Well, they are high stakes, but...
Yeah, but like only for one person. It's such a good film. That's why it's number 2 on my list. Even though it's, compared to like films like Call Me By Your Name, that's like obviously just a grand feat of cinema, and then there's just this film from Thailand that's about kids cheating on exams, and I loved it so much. But then the other ways they come up with cheating after that one with the piano thing ends up not working, are even more outlandish and ingenious, and there's so many times where people nearly get caught and then they get away with it, and then, oh no, are they going to get caught again? I highly recommend it.
It sounds good.
To everybody. That was my number 2.
Okay, so I'm not going to say number 1 because I haven't really numbered them, and I don't want people thinking this was the film I thought was the best of the year. Again, this is just, I feel like we have to talk about Star Wars: The Last Jedi.
Yes.
So
I forgot about Star Wars. I was like, what's it going to be?
So I liked this. I'm not saying it was the best film of the year or even my favourite film of the year, but I was pretty chuffed with it. The thing I really liked about it was the plot line with Kylo Ren and Rey. So I'm guessing you've not seen it.
No.
So,
but you've told me a bit about it, and I've heard things.
She goes to see Luke Skywalker on this planet, and first I'll say I just really liked how they did Luke in this. Like, he's not this great hero. She hands him his lightsaber and he chucks it in the ocean because he's just like, fuck this shit. He's basically, everything's gone wrong and he's just noped out of there, and he's gone to live on this little island planet by himself because he just can't be bothered anymore, and who can blame him? He's like, everything is shit, the First Order is shit, the Resistance is shit, just go home, there's no point. And she has to try and convince him to try and help her, and I like that he's just this kind of grumpy old man, and I think that worked really well. But like, he's still a good person, and he comes through at the end. So she's on this island and she discovers that she has a force connection with Kylo Ren where they can weirdly like see each other, and it's like so many memes and stuff where people are saying it's basically like a Skype romance. Yeah. And like, I genuinely really liked it. It was shot in a really interesting way that was quite beautiful, and it was all kind of parallel. So he would be in like some kind of aircraft hangar, and there was metal everywhere, and there's like some sparks kind of trickling over the wall, and then she's in this green planet where there's like a waterfall, and it's clearly meant to be like visually mirroring each other, and it just looked really beautiful. And then suddenly they can just see each other, and I just found it quite funny and entertaining, and 2, it was just genuinely quite interesting. I ended up quite invested in it, and that was the bit that I liked, and it kept going off to this other plot which I didn't like, where Finn and Rose, who I really liked, Rose was a new character, and I really liked them as characters, and that's why I was upset that their whole plot was very like side questy and a bit silly and bizarre, and it didn't actually, in the end, I realised this the second time I watched the movie, I was like, oh yeah, that the whole like MacGuffin that they'd gone to get ended up like being useless, and I was like, oh, that whole thing, literally they get caught like just as they're about to do X plot thing at the end, so it ends up being for nothing anyway, and I was like, oh, that's really frustrating. Why did we spend all that time with them? Because I liked them a lot. I'd like them to have done something more important. I wanted to be watching this Skype romance bloom because I didn't want to be the person that shipped Rey and Kylo Ren, because I totally get why people are like, why would you do that? He's a gross, spoiled white boy. And I'm like, he is, but I feel like that's just a more interesting story. And after watching this movie, I'm like, no, I'm really feeling it. They have this weird like Skype relationship where they can talk to each other. And first of all, it was just funny that her immediate reaction is to try and shoot him. It doesn't work, and she's just shooting holes in the wall. And then she decides she's going to try and she can save him, and she goes off to save him. And he turns his back on his master, Snoke. And I loved that he kills Snoke and cuts him in half. And it's like, Snoke's dead, because that was such a big thing. Everyone was like, who is this character Snoke? And when he came up in the last movie, like, what is he? We're going to find out who is he, like, related to someone? What is it? And he just died. I was like, we're never going to know who he was. That's fine. He's just finished with now. Cool. And it was really kind of
stuff like that happens.
It was like, okay, he's dead. And then my favourite scene in the whole film, Snoke is like, okay, kill Rey and show me your loyalty. And then Kylo Ren turns around and kills Snoke instead. And then all Snoke's guards are there. And first of all, their aesthetic, this kind of really bold red space age samurai look that all these guards had, would just looked really cool. And the whole room was like red and black, and thought it looked really sick. And then they have to defeat all these guards. And I was talking to some people at work about this the other day, and some of the people hadn't seen it yet. And I was like, talking to the person who had seen it, I was like, okay, all I'll say is killing red space samurai with Bay is my new is my new sexuality. That scene was the best thing ever, and it was just so cool. And they were like fighting off these samurai guys together, and it was so cool. There's a bit where like just the way it was so well choreographed, this fight scene. It was genuinely just incredible. There's a bit where she leans back onto his back, puts her hand on his thigh and propels herself upwards so that she can like get someone up there, and they put lightsabers through people's faces and they're like working together, and it was just so cool. I was like, I'm here for this. And then after that he's like, oh, Rey, join me, like fuck the First Order, fuck the rebellion, we'll just have our own galaxy together, we can do it. And she's like, oh no, come join the goodies. And he's like, has a huge temper tantrum about it, and she like basically tells him no and then leaves. And I was kind of annoyed, honestly, that he didn't turn then. I feel like they're leading up to a redemption arc and he will, but I get it though, because he is that kind of frustrating character where he would just do that. Didn't immediately get his own way, so he freaks out. So definitely there were things I didn't love. The whole Princess Leia floating in space thing was a bit weird. So
I know nothing about
her spaceship blows up and she's floating in space and it looks like she's dead, and I was thinking like, oh shit, she's dead, 'cause obviously Carrie Fisher sadly passed away. So I was thinking, oh okay, she's dead, obviously that's sad, but this is very nice. It was her floating in space and she's kind of starting to look all sort of frosty and like crystallized, because I guess space is freezing, and it was quite beautiful but quite creepy. But I thought, okay, that's a nice ending to it. But then her fingers twitch and she's got the Force, and she kind of does this Superman pose and zooms back to the spaceship and they let her in, and then she's okay, and she made it to the whole way to the end of the movie. She's out for a bit in a coma, but then by the end of it she's fine again and she goes off with the rest of them.
It's like, that's both ridiculous and awesome at the same time.
Yeah, I was like, this is really cool, but it looks so stupid, but wow.
It's really stupid, but I love it.
Yeah, it was like, I was laughing, like I was turning to the friends I was with like, okay, this is awkward, but I'm glad it's happening, because it's really fucking sick. Of course Princess Leia has the Force. But
there was because I binge watched Line of Duty over Christmas because all of it was on the iPlayer, and I'm just going to watch all 4 seasons at once. And then I was reading reviews of it afterwards, and the end of series 3, there's a bit that was my favourite thing in like the whole of the show that everyone else was saying was like, that was just so ridiculous, like they shouldn't have done that. It completely shattered any sort of suspension of disbelief. And there's a bit where one of the main characters is like doing this dramatic chase. There's been many more ridiculous things even up until this point, but is chasing another character through the street, and then they flag down a truck, and then they're just hanging onto the side of this truck, and they're like, follow that man. And I get that it's ridiculous. It was also my favourite part of the show.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt about this movie.
And it sounds like I think I'd have had the same reaction to Carrie Fisher doing a Superman pose.
That was really cool.
Jetting herself back to the ship.
It was really cool, but also like, what am I watching? And I love the porgs. People have had some backlash about that. They're the little cute animals.
Oh, yeah.
I found them really funny. I don't know, maybe I'm just a child, but
I thought they were cute when I saw them in the trailer, and then I realised what I thought were ears are actually arms, and it changed everything, and now I'm like, no.
Yeah, it was interesting, and I liked Poe's story. It was good, I thought. Poe had this storyline where he basically learned not to be such a hothead, where at the beginning of the movie he like goes in and destroys one of the enemy ships, I think, but loads of his fellow pilots die in the process, and he kind of says to Princess Leia, he's like, yeah, we did it, and she's like, well, yeah, we did it, but like everyone died, and she's basically saying to him the whole movie, like, you need to be better, you're going to be the new me, and you need to not just be this hero that like swoops in and does cool stuff and then leaves again. Sometimes you need to do the not exciting glamorous thing because you need to be responsible. And then by the end of the movie he's kind of got it, and there's a really cool bit where they're like, what are we going to do? And then everyone looks at Princess Leia and she's like, don't look at me. And then he takes over and tells everyone what to do, and it's good, and he's learned his lesson. I like a good nice bit of decent character development.
Yeah.
But I was upset for Finn and Rose because I like them and they deserved a better plotline. Another thing I didn't like about it, but this is just my weird thing I have, was that it's clearly meant to take place immediately after the last movie. And that kind of thing just stresses me out, because I just think like, what a stressful week. And it's such a weird, stupid thing to think, but I'm like, oh, this is literally picking off immediately. So all that crazy shit that happened, those people that died, happened yesterday. You guys must just be in shock still, and yet you're going through all this other... that's a weird specific thing that I have that just... I think I couldn't cope with that, just so full on.
Yeah, but it's... Because then you're put in like a different headspace to the characters, because for you it happened like a year ago.
But then they're not really acting like it happened yesterday, which is
annoying. It's because it's also like it didn't happen yesterday.
I also kind of...
If it didn't happen yesterday for the audience, it sort of didn't happen yesterday. They kind of have to... Otherwise
they mention like... It has just happened. It's definitely just happened. And it just... Everything happening that quickly, I don't know, it kind of makes me a bit uncomfortable. I'm not sure why. I also just think weird practical things that I shouldn't if I'm watching bloody Star Wars, where like, you all need to have a sleep. Like, when did you all eat? It's been like 4 days, I swear, where you've not been able to do any of this stuff.
Do you not need the toilet?
Yeah. Everyone just needs to take 5, chill out for a minute. But no, I really like the Rey and Kylo story, partly because it was so ridiculous. I saw someone describe it as like space pride and prejudice, and I was like, yes, I'm so here for that. It's just this ridiculous whiny baby space pride and prejudice thing. But yeah, he says to her, I know who your parents are, they were no one. And loads of people have said, I do get what people say when they say that's a really good thing, because everyone's been saying like, who's Rey's parents? And it's like, well, she doesn't have to be anyone's parents because it's her, and she's just this great character.
Yeah, I heard there was like a lot of people thought she was a Skywalker.
I thought they were going to do that.
That was like a big fan theory, and then she was just kind of...
And that would be good,
like
because they'd be
anyone important
doing the incest again.
That's quite funny.
That would be quite funny to me. But
I
like that he said, but I don't think I believe it though, because he says to her, he's manipulating her, so I think he's telling her. I don't think they would have set it up to have it be nothing. I just feel like that's not something they would do.
Oh, I'd like that. That's the sort of thing I like.
I kind of think, I know it would be fun. I just don't feel like a big movie like this, I don't think that's what they'd be doing. I think she might be, or maybe this is just my wish fulfillment. I'd love her to be a Kenobi. Also, because in Star Wars, accents seem to be hereditary, and she is British, so that'd be fun. And Obi-Wan was like always my favourite character. But anyway, it's besides the point. And I get that people are really kind of get annoyed at it, and they say, oh, I really hope they don't do that ship. But I kind of think it's almost offensive to the character of Rey to be like, oh, I don't want to start some kind of weird ship war or something. Please don't, people don't come for me. But I don't want it to be like, oh, that's so stupid, she can't have a relationship with this character. And it's like, well, why can't she? That's so demeaning to her to be like, oh, well, she can't handle herself. Like, yeah, he's a bit of a shit, and like maybe he'll change his ways, or maybe he won't. But it's interesting to explore anyway. And I think I like the idea of him having a character arc, because I liked that Finn was a stormtrooper who became good, but they deliberately did it so that he was a stormtrooper who had never killed anyone, and it was his first mission where he was like, I don't want to do this, and he defected. Whereas Kylo Ren's actually like killed loads of people, and I think that would be really interesting to see somebody, because they kind of talked about that in this movie. There's a bit where Yoda's Force Ghost comes back, and he helps Luke burn all the old Jedi texts and stuff, because he's being like, you know what, fuck all of it, it didn't work. And he says like,
I saw a video about that was about how it's
like, move on.
All the like Jedi rules are what screwed everything up.
Yeah, no attachment is what made everyone really angsty and want attachment.
And just ruined everything.
Basically, yeah. So I like that they've been like, screw all this, let's move on. Yeah, I think that was a really...
I'm glad that they've acknowledged that.
Good idea. I'm interested to see what they'll do with it. I saw somebody say, and I don't necessarily agree with them saying that this would be the bad ending, but they said, the bad ending will be Rian Johnson directs the third movie and we get Rey and Kylo Ren as a couple. I don't agree that would be a bad ending, but whatever. And then they said, the good ending is that we get J.J. Abrams doing the third movie and we get Rey and maybe Finn. And I was like, yeah, that would be okay. And then they said, but the great ending would be Taika Waititi comes in and we get the gay space opera that everybody wants.
That we all want.
Yes. Yes, please. Yeah. Sign me up for that. That's all I want in life.
Yeah.
Would be incredible. Finn and Poe.
Oh.
Best friends forever. But no, there were just loads of little things that I really liked. I liked the Skype love story. I liked the character development. I like where they're going with the screw the Jedi rules and exploring the Force a bit more. Didn't like weird MacGuffin-y subplot. Not good use of your characters. But I like where it's going.
Both liked and disliked.
Yeah.
Princess Leia with the Superman position.
Yeah. Gave me very mixed feelings. It was really emotional at the end as well. It's ridiculous to think, obviously they couldn't have known she was going to die but yeah. End scenes with Princess Leia with Luke where it's all about goodbyes and it was really heavy. I think there was a few people shedding tears in the cinema, that was weird, kind of eerie that they managed to get that. But the thing I really liked about Luke at the end was that he comes and he has this big fight with Kylo Ren and then this lightsaber duel and then you realise he's not really there and he's been manifesting an image of himself with the Force, basically. Which was just was hilarious.
And it was Arya Stark.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like that, yeah. And it was so funny to see Kylo Ren's reaction because he was so pissed off. But also I loved that Luke was just like, still being like, fuck this shit, I'm just going to sit on a rock and meditate and still own you. And then he became one with the Force and literally floated away. And that was the end of Luke. I'm sure he'll come back as a Force ghost, but it was like, that was cool.
For the Force.
But yeah, and that was why he couldn't be killed even when they put all the cannons on him. But it was just funny and he was just sassing Kylo Ren.
My last one. We're coming up on
nearly done.
4 hours.
Okay, we might have to cut this into 2.
I think we're gonna have to split this into like TV and then films as a separate podcast. We didn't
I've brought
plan
these
this
chocolates. I've got chocolate here and I've been looking at it for the last half an hour. You keep looking at me looking at it. I'm like, I want the chocolate but I can't just open the chocolate.
I should have thought about. I didn't think we were going to be talking. I thought like maybe 2.5 hours. We've got like twice that long. We should have split it in 2 and eaten in between. Anyway, to finish things up.
Lessons. We're still babies at this.
My number 1, which again is why I feel like I have such a weird list. And when I watched the film, I was thinking, can I put a documentary about rats as my number 1 film of the year?
Oh, I'm already sold.
I was like, no, I can't. Like, not if I'm not going to put a film like Call Me by Your Name on my list. I'm like, I can't put number 1 a documentary about rats. And yet here we are. My number 1 film is rat film. Again with me and my animal documentaries. Number 1, rat film. Does exactly what it says on the tin. But I feel like to say it's a documentary about rats is doing it a bit of a disservice. Because it just defies any sort of genre classification. It's kind of a documentary. It's kind of more of like an essay film. And then it's also... Why I decided to definitely put it as my number 1 choice is that it's the closest thing that I've just seen to art in a film this year. And it's this documentary about rats. It just feels like the sort of thing that I would have seen in a contemporary art gallery as much as in a cinema. But it's like I don't even know how to talk about it. Even more so than Twin Peaks. I don't even know what to say about this film. But it combines sort of more normal documentary elements where there's, they interview people. There's a guy who's like a pest control guy who goes around killing rats. It's all set in Baltimore. It's like rats in Baltimore. And then there's some people who keep rats as pets and they've got like this whole room dedicated to their pet rats. And there's people who have rats in their houses and they want to get rid of the rats. And then they parallel it with like this sort of other narrative about racial oppression and how historically the lines of the city, like redlining in cities, and how different areas were like white neighborhoods and black neighborhoods, and sort of compare that with rat populations. And there's like there's whole things going on. And then there's other like little bits about like not a video game, kind of like a video game, like a virtual reality thing of a street. And there's this really sort of poetic narration going over the top of it, and there's so many ideas coming into play, and there's a bit about dioramas of unsolved murders, and there's so many things going on. I don't know how to convey them through speech in the way that they do it in the film. It's just really well done. It made me think about a lot of different things.
It sounds like a great number one choice.
It is. It is a great number one choice. Thank you for reaffirming my choices. But I feel like I have a very odd list, but like I felt pressured to put things that have been on everyone else's list, and I was like, no, I really like this documentary about rats, and the documentary about cats, and this documentary about chickens. These are all my choices. And a heist film about students cheating on exams. Yeah, it's a really great film. I don't have as much to say about it. I feel like you spoke so passionately about Star Wars.
That's not a badge of honour, really, is it?
But I feel like I should say more about this film, because I genuinely my favourite film of the year, but I don't know what else to say about it, just other than people should watch it. I feel like it's a film probably a lot of people haven't seen, because I've seen it on a couple of lists. It's cropped up like quite low down on people's lists. Such a good film.
It sounds very interesting.
That has ended up being my number one pick of the year. And that's why it's a favourite list and not best list.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm justifying it to everyone. Nobody at me. My favourite film is a film about rats.
And please, all the
And it has nothing to do with the fact that I have pet rats.
Star Wars shipper people don't come for me either.
Yeah.
I'm really scared.
Yeah. But I think that concludes our now very long
finally
singular recording.
I really
that
put blood, sweat and tears into this.
Yeah.
I'm really hungry.
We'll split it into two.
We're starved, we're dehydrated.
I know. I really need a wee. It's been 4 hours. I've been drinking Coke.
Enjoyed. A bit rambly.
Yeah,
that's all
very
the best
rambly.
things.
As is, we just need to own it as being a thing. Like, it was just ramble about. No, it was just two nobodies rambling about nothing, and we're like, why don't we just put this on the internet? That's a thing people do now.
Yeah. At least now we have the internet.
Yeah.
Imagine if this was
Make us feel important.
pre-podcasts. We've just been not even recording this.
So this will be, I guess, the end of the film section. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.